Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. I got an email from Denver Copeland or a message or something along the line asking me to take a look at some of his work. And I did that, and I saw a picture that I really liked. It's not this first one. It's going to be the last one. It kind of reminds you of Avatar and Pandora, shot with a, what is this, D90 with the 14-24 on there. So it's a DX sensor with the 14-24. So it's not as wide as it would be on FX, which is fine. But I like the picture, and he said he is shooting RAW, which is great. But I thought that the picture could be tightened up if edited a certain way in Lightroom. Right now he's using CS3 to do the edits. I used to use CS2 before I got into Lightroom for my edits, and I really think that I just want to go through some quick tips, straight up, showing you how I do it, or how I would tweak a certain file in Lightroom. So he sent me over 3 RAW files. They're all landscapes, all very nice shots. You can see how the water blurred here, and for people who haven't seen this before, really, you do a longer exposure, and then when you're doing your longer exposure, you usually have to bump your aperture up so that you're not overexposing by letting too much light in. I like to shoot wide open because I'm shooting people most of the time, and I need to freeze the action. In this case, you don't have to freeze the action, so you can leave the shutter open longer and let the water basically blur and everything else stays still, and you get nice, cool pictures. So I've imported them already into Lightroom, and in the developing process, let's just go through the 3 different pictures to show you. That's the first one. Second one, I like the second one better than the first one. I'll explain why. And then I like this Pandora type shot. Kind of reminds you of Pandora. Now, don't go killing yourself like a couple of people did because they realized that Pandora is not real. That's just weird. So back to the first one. What kind of things don't I like about it? So we have my cursor, which is moving right here. It's just kind of distracting. It's the angle. You don't really get to see this waterfall. But then something like this, he pulled back more, and it just seems more peaceful because the trees aren't as close and they aren't distracting you as much. Because this is all rocks and less water because the water's over here. But here it's more of the water. It's smooth. It's more soothing, at least to me. But hey, it's art. Like I said before, what I say is not the gospel, and whatever you like, you like. What I usually start off with, I pump up my contrast. I'm a big contrast fiend, so I pump it up, I move it down, I pump it up, see where it goes, and that's where I start. Then usually I bump, play with my exposure, see what I like. It's exposed very well, so there's not much I can do there. I'm not a big fan of the fill light. I mean, look what happens when you move the fill light. It's kind of like when you see that HDR stuff. And that's something he mentioned, that he doesn't like doing HDR outside. And for those of you who don't know, I'm going to take a note right here to mention HDR and how I want to rip on it. I'm going to rant on it later at some point. HDR is high dynamic range. You take 3, 6, 9, 20,000 pictures of the same thing, all at different exposures, and then there's programs that mishmash them together so that if you're indoors and you take a picture, or let's say outdoors, you have, we'll go to this picture. Say you're outdoors and you expose for the sky, and it's really fucking, I said fuck, it's really freaking blue. And then you expose for the trees, and it's really freaking green, and then you mash them together, and you get this high dynamic range. And outdoors, I think it looks like crap. Same thing with house photography, where you expose inside and then expose for the windows. I think it looks like crap because it looks fake. Where I think HDR is awesome are those long night shots of cities that take on a futuristic look. That's awesome. But other stuff in that sucks, but that's a rant. Then we'll do that another time. So this picture, not a big fan of the fill light because it just washes things out. I like thick, contrasty things. Being that these are trees, you can bump the clarity a little bit. Clarity is a little bit, it's kind of like sharpening. I may bump this exposure slightly, make it a little brighter. What would black and white do anyway? No, black and white. I just don't like this picture, actually. Sorry, Denver. I like the other ones better. But I know you're just sending me to tweak them. I'm not ripping on you. I'm just, criticism type stuff, which I personally hate myself. So that's that. I don't hate myself. I hate criticism. That makes sense, right? There, and then I'll show you what else you can do in Lightroom. You want to pump up the greens? Boom, boom, boom. You can hit those green saturations. You don't want to go too far because they sometimes wash out when you print. But we'll skip to the next one because I like this one. Yeah, it's nice and smooth. You know, I like it. I'm not a big landscape fan. You'll come to know that. You see what your different white balances do. Another thing is, I think the question was about, no, white balance was from somebody else. But if you're shooting raw, you can tweak all your white balances later. But I want to get to this photo because this is what I like. Boom, here we go. Contrast. Look at that. Look what just happened. We went from flat to not flat. It's kind of like 8 minutes abs or something. So there you go. There's that. There. I'm gonna darken this up a little bit. I'm gonna bring the exposure back because I just think it's gonna look at that. The shadows and everything tightens up. Then we've got blacks. That's too far, right? But I'm gonna bring it back slightly. I don't like to go. I usually stay between 5 and 15, depending on the picture. Saturation. There's nobody in it. There's no people, so we can saturate it more. We can bring out the vibrance more, and it still stays real. You know. Let's see what happens when we move the white balance slightly. It gets a little blue, but it looks warm, so there's a little bit of yellow. It keeps it warm. Excuse me. And then if we took all the green out, look what would happen. Look what happens if you punch it up. So you can move your saturations up slightly. And this is how you get really poppy pictures. It's not a secret. It just is what it is. You can pump this stuff up. This is the control that you get in your RAW file. And then you can make it sharp. I have a general sharpening setting set, and that's it. Look how much this pops. It just pops. It's cool. It's like, hey, it's beautiful. You could make this into wallpaper, and it would be awesome. So there you go, Denver. This is how I would tweak it, and for everybody else out there, it's just a little tweaking, you know. If you have questions and things like that, you can always send them in. I'll be more than happy to you know, write it down and then get back to you in a video at some point. So there you go. That's tweaking those landscape files and just giving them a little bit of zip, a little bit of punch, because I like punchy. Catch you all later.